Good evening. Welcome to the Haywood County Board of Commissioners meeting for November 17th, 2014. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and this beautiful area we are blessed to live in. Guide us today and into the future as we face issues that affect our citizens. Help us make decisions in the best interest of our people. Watch over our elderly, our sick, our children, and those in need. Protect our veterans who served and our armed forces serving at home and abroad as they protect our freedom. Keep our law enforcement and emergency services personnel safe as they work to keep our citizens safe. Thank you for all you do. In your name, amen.
We'll begin with a call to public hearing. With us, Johnny Glantz, the Fire Marshal. Welcome, Johnny.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I have a request for public hearing for 4 different areas in the county for creation of fire districts and the annexation into a fire district. Be glad to answer any questions you may have on those areas.
I don't think so. If there's no objection, then we'll set the public hearing for January 19th, 2015 at 5:30 p.m. in this room. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to the public comment session. I have one person who has signed up to speak, Brenda O'Keefe. Welcome.
I may be wrong. I thought that this issue about the tax collector's office might be brought up tonight. I may have gotten that from reading too many newspapers, one of my bad habits. But anyway, I would like to say, and like I said, some of this is reading the newspapers. I think that Mr. Matthews was elected. Certainly, we all saw that. I'm not sure everybody knew which Mr. Matthews they were voting for. I wish that the articles that appeared after the election had been printed perhaps the week before and not afterwards. Things might have turned out differently. I know Mike. He was our alderman in Maggie for years. He comes from a very fine family. For my personal feelings about it, I think the fact that he had so many jobs in such a short period of time doesn't leave me with a lot of confidence in his ability to take on such a very important position here in the county, such a large amount of money. And I know what's happened in the past. I know they have a collection rate of 97%, which I think is outstanding. I worry about Maggie. The county collects our taxes for Maggie, and I'm kind of concerned about that for the future. I know there's talk about people leaving the tax collector's office. I can't speak for them. I know it's a rumor. I would hate to see that. I know a lot of the people that work in the office, and I know they've done a good job, and a lot of them have been there for a long time, and I would hate to see that happen, because it would be like everybody walking out of Joey's and leaving me there alone. And although I think I'm the queen, I'm not. I'm only as good as the worker bees that stay there with me. I couldn't do it without them. Mike made a lot of decisions in Maggie. I know he's very proud of the fact that he reduced the budget by 3%. I think it's been long enough now that it's come back to haunt us from that tax reduction. No one likes to pay taxes, but the way I've always felt being an American is someone has to pay them. We need roads, we need sidewalks, we need buildings, we need municipalities. Our employees need to be paid, and that's where the revenue comes from. So I'm intelligent enough to know we need taxes. no one likes for them to go up, but that's a fact of life. And I know we've all had all these cutbacks, and I've seen services cut back through the town, through the county, through the government, everywhere. So I feel differently perhaps about taxes. Mr. Matthews has had, like I said, had a lot of jobs, and that worries me. For me, that's not necessarily, I don't hire people when they tell me they've worked in every restaurant in Haywood County. I don't necessarily want them to add Joey's to their list. So I question that as far as his stability to hold this job. Doesn't mean that I think he's a bad person. I just don't know that he's stable enough for this job. He's been elected. I don't know that that's a factor. And I also am concerned that he wants to be paid what Mr. Francis had been paid, who went to several schools over a 16-year period of time to learn all those new positions. So anyway, that's just my personal feelings about it. I'm only one person in Maggie Valley, but I think this is a very complicated job, and I think it takes a long time to learn how to do it. So that's my feelings about it. I don't dislike Mike personally. We've been on different sides of the aisle many times, and that's a pretty well-known fact. But anyway, that's just my thoughts about this. I do feel for the people that have the job. I'd hate to see them lose their job over this, but anyway, I'd like you to consider what I've had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else has signed up. Is there anyone present who would care to speak? Okay, then we'll move on to constituent concerns. The way this, I know there's a lot of folks here, and I understand why you're here. I don't know precisely why, but in general, I do. Most of this matter will be discussed later tonight in closed session, and then there will be some motions, I would expect, following the closed session. So if you don't hear it right away in our business section, that's because we have to handle some closed session matters first that deal directly with this. So, okay, we'll move to constituent concerns. Bill?
No, just want to brag on the election board and our poll workers. I know they worked extremely hard covering 29 precincts. So we appreciate the effort, and probably the most underpaid group we have in the county, one of them.
Kirk, you anything?
No, there's one thing I need to talk to Ira about, but.
Okay.
Mark, I would like to take a minute to give the Walter Clark family condolences. Walter Clark was the town attorney for the town of Canton for 59 years. And I know when I first started my surveying practice, he did a lot of real estate closings, and I just feel like I was blessed to have known him and worked with him. And I just want to give his family my condolences on his passing away. I thought he was a fine gentleman, and I'm a better person because I got to know him. The other item I wanted to point out or to touch on was our shelter opened up Saturday night. They had 8 folks there, and y'all know how cold it was Friday night. They were in another location, but the first dormitory is finished where we can have residents in it. The other dormitory should be finished this week, and they're still working on the cafeteria. So I just want to kind of give y'all an update on that. And I want to thank the community and the churches for all their hard work. This time of year, especially tonight and tomorrow night, it's going to be extremely cold, and I'm glad that that people worked hard and got that. And I want to thank Dale for all he did. I know Dale has worked tirelessly over there and worked with everyone involved. So I want to thank him for all he did. So I want to say those 2 things.
Michael? No? Okay. Move to adjustment to the agenda. There's a couple of things. One is there will be a Board of Commissioners work session scheduled for Thursday, December 4th, 2014 at 1:00 p.m. in the Health and Human Services Agency training room. A wide variety of topics, and I expect that we'll meet probably for 3 to 4 hours to discuss those, and of course it's open to the public. I'd also like to mention that Commissioner Bill Upton has been appointed by the President of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners to co-chair the Committee on Education. This committee is made up of commissioners from throughout the state. The focus of the committee is to prioritize education goals and present them to the North Carolina legislature. Serving on this committee places Commissioner Upton on the board of directors for the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. And Bill, congratulations. I know you'll do a good job.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll move then to the consent agenda. We've had the opportunity to review the November 3, 2014 regular meeting minutes. Are there any changes to those? If not, then we'll move to the second item. We have our tax administrator with us, David Francis. David, welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. Hope everybody enjoyed the Carolina basketball games over the last 2 nights of the weekends. It's very good. I want to thank you all, folks who showed up this evening. I am honored and humbled at your all's presence here today. It makes me feel extremely, extremely good to have worked for Haywood County and to have served Haywood County. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. Very kind. Before you, Commissioners, you have the releases and refunds for the month of October. There was nothing of exception to report. The land use was a little bit lower than usual, but that's a good thing if you don't keep property. Any other questions?
Okay. Any questions of David? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll move to Julie Davis for budget amendments. Julie?
Good evening.
Hi.
I just have a couple of budget amendments for you. The first one is a $300,000 public safety grant. You might remember this. This is one we get about every other year for the 30th Judicial Alliance. And this one actually is going to start in 2015. However, we're able to use some of the next year's funding for some current year training, so I'm bringing it to you tonight.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
And the next budget amendment you have is $5,000. This is from contingency in our general fund, and it's for emergency medical services. They needed to purchase some additional medical supplies when the Ebola issue came about, and they were required to purchase some disposable hazmat suits, and we certainly had not budgeted that this year.
Okay. All right. Move to the fourth item. Ira Dove.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, the fourth item is a request to approve time change in the hours of operation of the Register of Deeds and the Tax Collection Office to close November 26 at 4 p.m. And the Tax Collection Office to reopen on December 1st at 11 a.m. for transition and preparation. A settlement will have to be made by closing an hour early. They'll be able to start closing out the books and beginning the settlement. The Register of Deeds is requesting to close an hour early as well because they cannot record deeds and other matters that would come in there without the tax office open. The reason that there is a differential on the first with only the tax collector's office reopening at 11 is that the Register of Deeds would have the rest of the day to record those matters once the tax office reopens.
And there'll be an audit conducted during that period for the changeover.
Just want to mention one thing. A couple of years ago, there was a bill that was introduced and debated really pretty strongly at the legislature about the posting of hours. And of course, the Register of Deeds Association, which I represent, that always said, we do post the hours. So I just want to be sure that these hours changes, that this office change, time change is posted, and if possible, put on the county website to be consistent with what we've been telling the legislature we've been doing.
Right.
Okay, so we'll make sure
This is
that they get those
a one-time thing. This is not permanent. It's just in order to have an audit done before the changeover takes place in the tax collector's
Is
office.
this an audit in the numbers? The only thing I anticipate, I mean, the only thing that I am concerned about is if you close that early on that day and somebody needs to stamp a deed. I'm not talking about collections. Because the collections won't matter, but if somebody comes in with a transaction and is not aware of this from Buncombe County or some other place, and not saying that the attorneys here would know, and can't close because they can't get their deed stamped, and the register of deeds is not open, that's a little bit of a problem. I mean, I hope we can work around that. If we're dealing with 30 minutes, that's what we're dealing with, aren't we?
And that was the reason, really, for the bill, that the bill was introduced. Something like that had happened in one part of the state.
That we can, stamp the deed. I can check the deeds at any time. If that problem arises, I'll be there to be able to stamp the deed, yeah.
And I assume, Sherry, okay, as long, I don't anticipate, I mean, the likelihood of that happening on Wednesday, the 26th, is probably not real good, but it could, and then you don't have another date until after that following Monday, so that, I guess that's what concerned me a little bit.
On this, they're not actually closing now on the first.
Correct. Yeah, it's just the
See,
original.
yeah, I was concerned about that, so I didn't really want to be closed on the first. But my concern, and I spoke with Chip, was if I'm open and the tax collector is closed on the first, can I record other documents if I'm not recording deeds?
Yeah, but on the first, you will be open at some point in time, so that doesn't bother me. It's that transaction that has to occur at the end of November or that day that doesn't get recorded. I mean, if you're not open till later on the first, that's not a big deal. Then it'll still happen. But
I mean,
just
I'm
if
going
there's
to
somebody
be
there
open,
that
I just won't be able to record deeds because I didn't really feel I should close for 3 hours on the first. We'll take our oath and we'll be open. But I'm like you, I'm concerned about that, people coming over, but I'll do my
But it
best to
sounds like,
post it.
but you will be there and you'll be able to stamp the deeds in case that happens.
Correct, we will.
Okay.
Right.
okay.
Yeah, we'll be able to stamp deeds. We're just not going to be able to accept the money. Because once we start closing out at 4 o'clock, we have an outside audit firm coming in along with the finance office to balance, everything out, to check everything out before the transition takes place on December 1. It was the most prudent path that we could take. I hated closing an hour early, and unfortunately, it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So we had to make some accommodations for that because, the staff is going to have to work over the holidays as well to get everything done. So, okay.
Thank you.
You okay? Any other comments or questions? Okay, any questions on the consent agenda? If not, would entertain a motion that the consent agenda as presented be approved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Unanimous, thank you. We'll move to new business. The first item of new business is we have Jeff Haynes with us requesting approval of a resolution declaring a van as surplus property. Welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. Hope you're doing well this evening. What you have in front of you is a resolution for the Haywood County Sheriff's Office to declare a 2005 Ford E350 van as surplus based upon the resolution that you have in front of you for trade.
Okay. Any questions here? It's virtually worthless, correct?
Yeah, at this point, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. If there's no questions, then would entertain a motion to approve the resolution declaring surplus property.
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, we have Julie Davis next with a budget amendment for the Sheriff's Office.
This budget amendment is actually related to the resolution that you just approved. There's a van that needs to be traded in for another vehicle, and the sheriff is going to have to pay some money for the rest, but over and above the trade-in. The sheriff actually has sold some vehicles this year and some other equipment. We had budgeted about $5,000 for that. We actually brought in $14,050, so we have $9,050 that's available to budget. So what we're going to do is put that money into a capital outlay line item for motor vehicles for the sheriff's office.
Okay. Any questions here? If not, entertain a motion that the budget amendment as presented be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Well, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, next up is Ira Dove with the introduction of our new Health and Human Services Agency Director.
Yes, Mr. Blevins, if you could come forward, please. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Talmadge Stone Blevins. He goes by Stoney. It's been a long year together, but we have found our new Health and Human Services Agency Director in Mr. Blevins. Mr. Blevins was born and lived in western Piedmont area for the first 25 years, lived in the North Raleigh area for about 20 years, and in western North Carolina for the last 5 years. Presently, he is the director of the Transylvania County Social Services in a position that he's held for the last 5 years. Prior to that, he had over 17 years of human service experience at the county level, mostly in social work, and moving up to program manager levels prior to becoming a director. He had 6 years of human services experience at the state level as a trainer. I've known him as a peer for about 5 years as a social services director, and he's very well thought of in that community and has done a lot of great work and innovative work in Transylvania County. It comes highly recommended from all of the folks we checked with, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Blevins to you tonight.
Welcome, Mr. Blevins. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well, I'm certainly honored to have been selected, and I'm actually very excited to get over here and get out in the community and start meeting folks and serving this fine community.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's not easy to be the first at something, but you are the first Health and Human Services Director in the history of Haywood County following the consolidation of those two agencies. So congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mark, can I just want to thank Ira Ira has done 2 jobs this year. He's done he's done at DSS and Human Services, and he's done the county manager job. And I know he's not had a lot of time with his family like he should have, and I'm glad that Stoney's on board to where Ira can go do his normal county manager job and doesn't have to worry about being in 2 places at one time all the time. So I appreciate the process that we did to get such a fine director as we've got with Stoney, and I do want to thank Ira for all the work he's done. Thank you, Ira.
Very.
Thank you. I would be remiss if I did not mention the folks sitting on the front row who have borne the brunt of this work as well. And over there we have 3 of our directors and Mr. Rocco. I saw him in here earlier, the 4 of them. So we have Michelle Haynes, our business officer, Donald Upton is our social work director, Teresa Allison, our economic service director, and Carmen Rocco, our public health services director. And they have done a tremendous job stepping up and making this happen in the last year.
Yeah. And that's exactly where I was going next. And I appreciate what you all did during the time with the transition of the 2 departments, and then with Mr. Dove taking over the county manager's position, and being able to do what you all done and keep the department really excelling as it has and will continue to be. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then we'll move again to David Francis with the 2015 personal property depreciation schedule.
Thank you, Commissioners. Each year, we come before you and ask you to approve the the next year's personal property. So this year would be the 2015. When we mail out the listing forms at the end of December to be listed by the end of January, this is the schedule that you follow for personal property, the depreciation schedule. Nothing of note to change on that. We did add a category of junked boats. We've run across a lot of those when we've done our audits and found those, and we've set that price at below. If you mailed a bill on a junk boat, it gets written off. We have a minimum of $2 bill, and so it's below that minimum, but at least we'll have them, accounted for, and then when somebody comes in and says, I've got this old boat, we can actually have a category to plug it into. That's one of the things we'd run. As you might remember from the North Carolina Department of Wildlife, we had that list that they furnished us about concerning all the boats, and that grew out of having that list there that we needed to add that category there.
So other than a junk boat, that's the only change from last year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions of David?
David, what's the minimum on the LLC if they don't submit anything? The personal property tax?
The LLC, some LLCs that we found are just holding real estate. And if they just fill out the personal property form that said that it's just an LLC to hold it out, then that bill goes away. There's not a minimum on that.
Okay.
If it's just holding real estate as a name only.
But they need to fill it out. If they don't fill it out, there's a minimum.
Right, and yeah, and that's, we have a form that we use like other LLCs. We've talked about the other similar business interests, that we plug that number in there and give them 30 days to, at that point to call us back, write up and say, it's just holding, the LLC. Right. So that at that point, it gets taken off the books.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion that the 2015 personal property depreciation schedules as presented be approved.
So move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, next up, we have Dale Burris, our Facilities and Maintenance Director, seeking approval for an architectural designer.
Good evening,
Welcome, Dale.
Commissioners. Hope everyone's doing well. Yes, this request is for the architectural designer for the Haywood County 911 EOC facility renovations. We actually advertised the request for qualifications and requested the architects to send a letter of intent that they were going to supply those qualifications to Haywood County. There were 3 architectural design firms submitted the letter of intent by the deadline date of October the 24th. Those design teams were Gensler, Pageant Freeman Architecture, Stewart, Cooper, and Newell. All 3 of the firms also sent their request for qualification packages in by the deadline date of November the 4th. Haywood County Administration, Mr. Dove, County Manager, Ms. Davis, Finance Director, as well as myself, reviewed the qualifications from each individual designer. And went back and actually, after we reviewed them, it was a really hard decision once you started looking for qualifications, knowing that there was only 3. And we went back and actually, I contacted each individual architectural design firm, and I had 4 or 5 basic questions that I asked them. And the criteria that we followed was, of course, was the response to the RFQ. And they all responded correctly. We based the design fees on a 2,000 square feet, anywhere from 1,600 to 2,000 square feet, based on the availability of the area that they'll be designing. And the actual lowest price to negotiate was between $60,000 and $65,000 for this renovation project. And we went through asking them if they had worked with the grant writing group, Mission Critical Partners. None of the design firms had actually been involved in that. They've tried to, but it's apparently hard to get on the front end of that. And also working with Haywood County and the town of Waynesville as well. So it was the suggestion from after a meeting on November the 13th, after I got this information together, I met back with Ms. Davis and Mr. Dove, and it's a suggestion by the county administration to actually enter into negotiations with Pageant Freeman Architecture from Asheville, North Carolina.
Okay. Any questions?
Dale, what will their fee be?
Well, we're basing their fee on the $60,000 to $65,000. Okay, we'll negotiate on that because where the facility is, we we don't need to be giving those plans out till someone's under contract or at least been approved to look at the floor plan itself because of security issues. And all the architectural firms completely understood that. So we're basing their costs around a negotiated fee of $60,000 to $65,000 once they look at the floor plans of the existing facility, and then I'll be bringing that back to the commissioners for approval for the contract once that fee is negotiated.
This came about because of a grant that
Yes, sir.
Haywood County
This came
received.
about due to the 911 grant.
Right. Any other questions of Dale? Okay. I know we have a fairly long history with Paget and Freeman, and it's I think they're a very good firm. Back when I was chairman of the school board years ago, they did work for Haywood County Schools and did a fine job. So.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then would entertain a motion that the architectural designer Paget and Freeman be approved for negotiation of fees, and you'll be bringing a contract back.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, entertain that motion.
So move.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dale. Next up, we have Ira Dove with a request for approval of a grant application. Ira?
Yes. I'm requesting a resolution authorizing us to submit a grant for up to $600,000 to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for funding of a community-wide Brownfields Coalition assessment grant. We would be requesting to do this as the lead agency when this grant goes in. So far, the town of Waynesville has by motion committed to joining, and I understand that the town of Canton, their manager called me today and said that they're committed as well, and the town of Clyde is committed to joining in this. Maggie Valley is also possibly interested in looking at it. The Brownfields grant, what this would do is enable the county to pick a number of sites, public or private, that may need some remediation on them. They may have been a prior dry cleaner, or they may have been someplace that had like a gas station, an old gas station, or some kind of EPA potential hazard site, and this would pay for the initial assessments. And potentially, if they go through the assessment process, it could pay for remediation. The initial grant won't, but I mean, it opens up the ability to do that with other grant funding.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Sounds worthwhile. So. Okay, we'll entertain a motion then to approve the resolution which would authorize the staff to submit a grant request up to $600,000 for the EPA for the Brownfields Coalition Assessment Grant.
So move.
Second.
Excuse me, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're back to Jeff Haynes again. I'm sorry, Jeff, we should have put you back to back and you could have left earlier. Jeff has a request for a professional services contract.
Good evening once again, Commissioners. Stand before you right now with the request for a contract for professional services for mission critical partners in following the approval of a grant a couple of months ago, actually a month or so ago, in regards to the enhancement and for the 911 communication systems for Haywood County. Mission Critical was the partner group that allowed us to write and successfully receive the $2.6 million grant, of which the architectural services that Mr. Burris just spoke about as well too. The contract for services that we're looking for right now would be a multitude of different things to provide a turnkey project for Haywood County in regards to the 911 center, to include grant administration, which would be reporting, grant management, to manage timelines, bidding processes, and coordination of contractors and subcontractors, provide support, on-site support here in Waynesville for construction and administration of the construction portion and IT services, and to assist and procure additional grant funding for IT services as well too, and basically to oversee the seamless transition into the new 911 center to provide better services for the citizens of Haywood County.
with that, this grant, this contract would be paid for out of existing grant funds as well, too.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. If not, then would entertain a motion to approve a contract for professional services between Haywood County and Mission Critical Partners.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I just wanted to add to that this mission, not that it makes any, but this mission's based out of Pennsylvania and has nothing to do with
that is
mission
correct.
from, I mean, I've been battling mission for 6 years, so I really don't want us to think we're partnering with them, okay?
Yes, sir.
Not that their mission's bad, they're not bad at all, they're great, it's just.
To clarify that, yes, sir, Mr. Commissioner, you're correct. They're actually a company that has offices in Pennsylvania, Texas, and North Carolina.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for that
Okay.
clarification.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we have 4 items remaining. They're all appointments to boards. The first is appointment of 1 member to the TDA board representing accommodations of more than 20. We had 1 applicant, which was interviewed by the full board earlier today. And so if there's no objections, I would move that Christopher Corbin be appointed to the TDA board.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, and then I'll recognize the county manager for the remaining 3.
Yes, the remaining 3 types and 4 point people. The next one for the TDA board, less than 20, Beth Brown, who is presently on the TDA board. She's the owner of businesses and resides in Maggie Valley.
Okay. Was she the only applicant?
She is the only applicant.
Okay. Can we entertain a motion that she be appointed to the TDA board?
So move.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. And she's already been a member of that board, and being the TDA representative, or the commissioner representative, she's done a very good job, very involved, so.
I feel very comfortable with her. Okay, Ira, number 10.
Yes. 10 is a request to appoint a member of the Engineering Review Board. There was again 1 applicant, Warren Sugg, nominated by Patrick Bradshaw. He's a professional engineer since 2006, is a civil engineer, and hopes to serve his community and give his experience to the community needs and leaders.
Okay, entertain a motion for that appointment.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. And the final appointments of 2 members to the Sediment and Erosion Control Board. Myra.
2 positions, 2 applicants. First applicant would be Ronald Leatherwood. He is presently serving on the Erosion and Sediment Control Board, general contractor with over 40 years of experience.
Okay. Any questions or comments? If not, would entertain a motion that those individuals be appointed to Sediment and Erosion Control Board.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, that completes our business agenda. As I said earlier, we will be going into closed session. It may be fairly lengthy. It may perhaps up to an hour, but I would anticipate some actions following that closed session.
Mr. Chairman,
So at this,
can I interrupt? I'm sorry. I don't believe you named the second appointment to the Sedimentation Control Board.
Shane Valliere.
Weren't there 2? Should have been
Yes.
part of the resolution. We didn't hear it, so.
oh, okay, yeah.
My apologies. Shane Valliere, or I may have just butchered the name, who's a Haywood County business owner and general contractor.
Okay, I thought you did. Okay, at this point, we'd entertain a motion to enter into closed session for personnel under authority of General Statute 143-318.11A6, acquisition of real property. Do you have that address? Do you have that address of that property?
Do we give that back to you? It's the PIN number.
Yeah, I had it at one point. While we're locating that, an attorney-client privilege, General Statute 143-318.11A3. I know we have to identify the property.
The real property is the property of Betty Lewis. It's adjacent to the Francis Farm landfill, current landfill that's closed and in remediation.
right? Okay. That's 23 acres?
It's 25.3 acres.
25.3 acres. Okay. Would entertain those motions at this point.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. We have returned from closed session. I would, at this point, entertain a series of motions. The first being a motion to appoint David Francis as the interim tax administrator at his current salary. Duties would include, but not limited to, GIS, reval, mapping, tax assessor, solid waste, including being the coordinator of the Francis Farm remediation project, and to have the county manager prepare appropriate personnel manual and pay grade changes. And that motion would note that the tax collector will not report to the tax administrator. So I would entertain that motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Second motion is to set the salary of the incoming tax collector, Mike Matthews, at $55,831. I would entertain that motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. The third motion is to be entertained is to set the bond for the incoming tax collector, Mike Matthews, at $410,000. Entertain that motion.
So move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And the fourth motion is to approve the purchase of 25.3 acres of real property from Betty Lewis off Francis Farm Road, portion of PIN number 8626-239678, described in Deed Book 115, page 184, being a 25.3 acre site for a price of $850,000, and allowing seller to lease the property for 1 year to complete agricultural activities on the property. Before we take a motion or a vote on that motion, I would ask David Francis to come forward and give us a brief outline or summary of why this particular piece of property is being purchased and why.
Thank you, Commissioners. As you may know, the Francis Farm project has been an ongoing problem since 2009. And with the 209 project that we were able to get 100,000 cubic yards of dirt from, has accelerated our cleanup efforts. We're doing in the process of assessment of corrective measures right now. Because with that 100,000 cubic yards of dirt, that dirt will go back and put a new cap on the landfill. The Lewis property sits adjacent to the Francis Farm landfill. For years, the methane gas has been bleeding off the property, and the county has not been in compliance since then. We started a groundwater monitoring program, and we drilled 24 wells throughout and around Francis Farm, several of those being on the Betty Lewis property. Those groundwater wells did come back with contamination of high volatile organic compounds at the time, and it is still ongoing at the problem. There is not a groundwater surface problem. There's a creek that runs there, and there's monitoring wells there. But the deeper wells, there is groundwater issues. So we have two problems there, that we're out of compliance on the property line with the methane, and there is groundwater contamination there as well. Purchasing this property will eliminate we can move those boundaries, and we'll come back in compliance on the methane. And owning the property that way as well sets a new boundary, and that brings the county back into compliance as well too. We still have to do the remediation efforts. You know, what we're doing with the 100,000 cubic yards of dirt does not go away just because we've purchased this property. It helps the county because we'll have to use some of that property as well to do the remediation as well too. As we have discussed previous times, the edge of waste goes right up to the county and the Lewis property. This will, purchasing the property will eliminate that issue as well. We'll still have to do the remediation there where the edge of the waste is, but it's still a costly project. We knew going in, as you may remember from our August 4th meeting with Mark Cathy from McGill and Associates, who's been the engineer of record for the county for over the past 10 years. At that time, he recommended, purchasing the adjoining property outlined for the various reasons I described earlier to you. The property, just a brief, as we purchased the Shelton property back in August as well to store the dirt with, the property line will run on the southernmost west corner all the way to the creek there, that's the Ratcliffe Creek down through there, and go back to the Francis Farm Road there, which comprises of 25.3 acres. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I appreciate the summary. I know those of you who have watched our meetings over the last couple of years will recall that we have talked about Francis Farm landfill and the problems out there in an unlined landfill on many, many occasions. And I'm sure would recall that the solution is a multi-million-dollar solution, many multi-millions. So, okay, so the motion as previously stated is on the table. Anyone care to make that?
So moved.
Kevin, second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Is there any other business? If not, would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.